Welcome to PA Timber Ghost. Fall's getting closer. The woods are starting to change. Most people don't notice the subtle changes, but as the summer goes on, you can tell that fall's getting closer. First thing you'll notice are the katydids that start coming out. You can hear them up in the trees singing all night. You'll see lightning bugs, and the crickets will become very vocal. And the last sign are usually all the spider webs that come. Spiders are getting ready to lay their eggs, so you'll see a lot of spider webs, and spiders seem to be hanging everywhere. The real giant spiders seem to come out at the beginning of September. These are really creepy to me. But today we're going to change some bowstrings. Going to do some shooting with a crossbow, and I also will have a thunderhead broadhead review. I think the thunderheads have probably harvested more deer than any other broadhead out there. They're very accurate, they're very reasonable, and they do what they're designed to do, harvest animals. So we're going to change some strings today, and hopefully you'll enjoy this video as the season's getting closer. Okay, going to change our string. Here's my new string. This went up about $10 this year, and I believe this was about $36. I think last year I paid $19, $20, so I don't know if that's because of the coronavirus. Here's my string. All the Micro Series Excalibur bows all take the same string, so that makes that very easy. So I bought 2 of them. And here's my string changer. Played with this once. Not real good at this, so I guess I'll get better as I go. And my rope decocker. The 308, I can do this with a rope cocker. The micro suppressor, I cannot. I have to use the crank on that. And I don't really use oil on my crossbow rail. I actually bought this from Walmart. This is a dead downwind speed stick, and I got 3 of these for like $10. I believe these also went up a lot. This actually works very well. It stays in that groove. And then I have MP Pro 7. This is probably the best oil I've ever found. I use this on all my firearms, and you only need a little drop. This goes in the trigger mechanism, and it'll actually stay in there. Your trigger mechanism won't freeze or rust. I've actually had other oils in the past that froze when I got cold. I had some Remington 870 autoloaders, and the oil I put in there actually froze when I got down around 10 degrees. And put this on my handgun that I carry, 44 Magnum, my 308, a few other firearms, and I've been rained on, and I took my Glock apart and the oil was still there, it never rusted. This sticks very well. I believe the military uses this. This came from Midway, USA. It's a little expensive. It's about $10 or $12 for this little bottle, but a little bit of this will last you years. Okay, now we're going to take our string off our Excalibur 308 and swap that out. If the brace height isn't right, according to the video that Excalibur has on their website, you want to twist the string to get the brace height correct. So this bow should be pretty easy, and see what happens. Going straight. My safety on. That way my fingers stay where they're supposed to be. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Snip the old one out of there. Keep my fingers clear of that in case something lets go. Okay. There's that. Here's my new string. Try this again. That string must have stretched about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. I don't change my strings every year. If they're frayed, I will change my strings at the end of the season, but usually I change them every couple years, depending upon what it looks like and how much I shoot it. this over the limb this time. Alright, here's my string. It's on there. It's nice and centered. And that should be it for that though. String. Alright. Let's decock this and let the limbs go back down. Let's see where we're at. Alrighty, take the safety off. Push the decock button on the back. See what we got. Okay, here's my old string. I guess these are supposed to go in between the string, but I'm going to take them off. There's a spider that was on there. You can see that. I'm just going to leave them off. Okay, one old bowstring. Now I kind of have an idea what I'm doing. Okay. Now you're supposed to have a brace height on here, and for some odd reason there was never a gap between the stopper and the string, which now there is. So you're supposed to, according to Excalibur, you're supposed to have 1.5 inch brace height between this string and where the riser starts. So this string was right up against it. This is probably stretched out maybe 1.5 inches too long. So I'm kind of glad I changed that. That one we don't need. This actually works very well. I kind of like this. Okay, we're done with that. I'm going to put some rail lube on there. And, this one has an aluminum riser. So it will wear on your crossbow bolts if you don't put some kind of lube on there. This basically is like a chapstick. I actually wonder if you could put chapstick on there. I don't know. It would probably work if you didn't have nothing. So basically I just pour a little bit on my finger and just put it in that groove. Now the part that actually holds my crossbow down, my bolt, I actually have a little bit of tape on there. That way I don't have metal on my carbon arrow. It actually quiets it down. So we'll put some lube on here. And I'll also put some on my string, which right now I don't have any twist in. Now next year the string will stretch, and the string will start to touch the stoppers again. So then what I'll do is I'll put my string changer on there, and I'll put a few twists in there till I have a little gap in here again. If this is touching this, your string is probably stretched out too far, and you'll probably want to change your string. Or if your string's all frayed from the pickers and things hitting it going through the woods, I would change the string. But again, I do have an extra string in my pack, and I have the string changer. So if something happens to this, I'm not out of action. I can actually change this in the field, keep hunting. Which in the past, when my strings broke, I was pretty much done. And considering how far away from the road I was, it was very aggravating. So again, Excalibur is probably the best way to go. You don't have to go to an archery shop to put your bow in a press to swap the string out. There's only one string to break. Some of the high-speed bows have 4 strings. and any one of them could break. It's much easier to spend $35 for one string and change it out. There's nothing to go out of time on this, no wheels. It's very simple technology. It's very rugged and very accurate. I actually wish this was the first crossbow I bought, but Excalibur's got me some deer. So has my 10-point turbo. That's actually killed me some deer too. So all right. Alright, got wax on my string, got wax on my rail. My brace height on here is correct. There's actually a gap in between there now like there's supposed to. When I bought this, I don't know how long it was hanging up there in the shop, and the string actually stretched and touched this. So last year I took it off and twisted it and put it on, but it still touched. I couldn't get the right brace height, but now it's correct. Okay. So now we're going to take some MP Pro 7 and I'm going to put some of this into the trigger. You don't need a lot. All you need is a little tiny Q-tip and a few drops on this. This oil will go a long way, so you don't saturate your crossbow with oil. It'll run down the trigger. And check your screws that are on your crossbow. If they're rusted, you want to put a light coating of oil on them to keep your metal parts from turning orange. I do this a few times throughout the year, especially when I'm hunting in the rain. So back in here, you can actually see where the trigger is and what I'm going to do. Let's see if we can get closer in here. I'm actually going to take my Q-tip here and I'm going to put some oil in here. See where it's going. See the trigger mechanism in here. This is my dry fire safety. So I'm going to put some oil in there. And that oil will creep down in there. And I will do this periodically, depending upon how much moisture I hunt in. And then my Allen heads, pretty much everything on this bow that can rust, I will coat with oil. There's the top of the limb. There's the Allen head here. I'll pretty much coat everything on my bow. Okay, all my bolts on my limbs are got a little bit of oil on them. Start at the front, work your way back. Okay, got the bolts in here. Little bit of oil, my scope ring bolts. Okay, that's pretty much done. Okay, that one's ready to shoot in again. So the next crossbow will be the micro suppressor. We'll put a string on that. And okay, this is the second bow. I have the 308 short. It's done. Took me less than 5 minutes to change that string. No trip to the archery store. This one here, because the limbs are heavier, they have a 270-pound draw. I'm actually going to use the hand crank. And then after I get the string on there, I'm going to use a rope cocker. Put the limbs back down. So this bow is only about a year old. The 308 short I've had for 2 years. So this string did not stretch as much. There's the same string. Both bows will take the same string. Micro string. Battery in my scope went dead. So I got 2 of these for about $10. This is actually a lithium battery. This will make the reticle glow. need a quarter to take that out. If the battery goes dead and it's twilight or it's getting dark, you can't actually see what you're shooting at. You can guess, but it's easier just to spend the $10, put a new battery in every year, and then I have two, so the other battery will be in my pack with the string. So I'm always prepared in case something goes wrong. If any part of your setup fails, it'll probably cost you a deer. All right, let's put our stringer on here. See what we can do. I don't know about this piece of plastic here. The cocker doesn't really go around it, so what I did with the other bows, I just pushed it to one end. Hopefully this will fit right on here for me. I don't have to fiddle with it. Let's see. Time will tell. And now I gotta put the crank on. Lock our crank in here. Unleash our hooks. And I'm going to take this plastic tubing, because it doesn't really work that well. I'm going to push that aside. Hook up my string. Side. Okay. Keep this in cock. Now let's see if I have it set right. It's underneath of my release. Just going back. Okay, my bow is cocked. Put the safety on. We will release the rope cocker on here. This back where it was. Alright, let's see if my string will come off. Very leery of sticking my finger in front of that string in case it lets go. And there's my string. Came off very easy. The string leeches seem to be inside of the string. So I'm going to take these off. Put these in the box. I don't think I'm going to put them on the new string. This bow is so loud and it's very fast. 350 feet per second. I don't really think these string leeches are going to make a difference. When you shoot on this bow, it sounds like a shotgun going off. It's actually very noisy. Okay, here's my two leeches. Let's see if you can see them here. There's my two leeches. I'm going to put these back in my little box. Save them for another day. Here's my new Excalibur string. Okay, put this on one side, on my limb. Okay. It's in the groove. Make sure your string's in that recurve groove, or it's probably going to blow off. This side here. So far so good. Guess the more I do this, the better I'm going to get at changing these strings. Okay, that's pretty much it. It's on there. Now I'm going to turn you around here. I'm going to point this down. So now I'm going to let my limbs down. Here's my rope cocker. I'll put this on the floor. stand in the stirrup, and I'm going to let my limbs down, and hopefully my brace height will be correct. Keep the safety off. Okay, put some pressure on this, push my button down, push my trigger. Okay, first try it got stuck on the dry fire mechanism, second one was the charm. Okay, there's my rope. There's my rope. Here's my string changer. It was actually very easy. Put my camera back here. Come back over here. It was much easier. And my brace height looks correct. So I don't have to play with that. Okay. Now, give her a little bit more here. Put my rail lube on there. Lube it up. Put some on my rail here. You want to put some of this underneath it here on the part that holds your, let me move this here so you can see it. On this part that holds your crossbow bolt. It'll make a smoother transition for your bolt. Okay, and then we'll get our string here. Now, as the season goes on, if you're on some bows, the serving will actually start to unravel. You can see this here. This will actually start to unravel. This is where most of the pressure is, where your crossbow bolt is. If the serving unravels, I would highly recommend that you change your string. You can have a catastrophic failure. Remember, when your crossbow is cocked, your face is right next to it, and you can have a very bad injury if this breaks and your face is next to it. So always keep an eye on the serving on your string. I don't take no chances. If it looks bad, I'll have somebody change it, but you know, fortunately I can change this myself. Okay, that's all done. That over here. Now I'm going to take my M Pro 7 and a Q-tip, and I will touch up some of my screws on here, my trigger mechanism. And again, if you don't put any lubrication in here, sometimes your bow will hesitate and it will not cock. It'll be stuck on the dry fire indicator and it won't lock when you pull it back. So you actually want to keep an eye on this. This will actually get, some mechanism will actually get dirt in it. And I'll push the decocker down. Let's see if you can see this. This will actually get debris in it, and so will the part where it actually locks into your string. And what will happen is it won't cock because you'll get little pieces of debris in there and dirt. So you want to constantly clean that. It will get gritty as the season goes along, the more time you spend in the woods. So it's actually very important to keep your trigger mechanism working correctly. If you take care of your crossbow, it'll work every time. If you don't, it's gonna jam up and it won't work at your moment of need. You could have the biggest buck you ever saw in front of you, and your trigger mechanism is locked, or your string will break, and then you got nothing. Sometimes you can hunt the entire season and it comes down to a 30-second shot, and if your equipment's not ready or not, you wasted a whole season for 30 seconds because you weren't ready. Fortunately, that's happened to me more than once, so my equipment is redundant. I will have a review on what's on my hunting pack. I'm very well prepared for pretty much any situation or to help anyone out I run into in the woods. Okay, that's all done. Okay, the string that cocks the bow is Kevlar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this all the way out, and I'm going to get my wax, and I'm going to wax my cocking mechanism here. Every brand that has this cocking system, the rope on here is usually made out of Kevlar, and I would suggest that you change this every 3 or 4 years. It's usually about $100 to change this string. You don't want that to fail when you're bringing them limbs back in the middle of the dark. It'll probably sound like a M80 going off. So you want to keep everything lubed, everything clean on your bow, everything working correctly. Okay, that is clean. Now I can put this back, and again I'll have to shoot these in again because now my string is shorter, so my point of impact will move. One other thought on crossbows: if you sight your crossbow in when it's warm, and then you don't shoot it anymore, and then when you go hunt when it's cold, your impact point will change. Cold air is very dense, and how your limbs flex and react to the cold weather will actually make your impact point miss sometimes by a foot, and that actually cost me a deer or two. I shot it and I couldn't figure out why I missed. Came home, put the bail up, it shot a foot low to the left. So always shoot the crossbow 1 or 2 shots the night before you go hunting. Okay, now I'm going to change the battery in my scope. Basically all I need for this is a quarter. Now I'm just going to unscrew this. Take that out of there. And gotta get this coin cell out. This battery will last about a year, maybe 2 years, depends on how many times you turn it on. I only turn my light at reticle on this scope in the morning and the evening. I don't leave it on. I will only turn it on when something comes out in front of me, or I hear something coming. I don't know what the lifespan of this battery is if you turn it on and leave it on. And where's my quarter? Down here. Okay. That is in there. And we'll make sure it lights up. There. This actually has red or green dots in it in this scope, and it has 3 settings for red and 3 for green. This is a very nice scope on this bow. I've had lighted reticle scopes before, but this is probably the best one I've had. Okay, this bow is ready to sight in and it's ready to hunt. Okay, so what's it sound like if your limbs break on your bow? Well, if your limbs break on your bow, 1 or 2 things are going to happen. You'll hear a little crack when you shoot, and then your arrow will land way off course, or it'll drop right in front of you. That's happened, and the one limb that broke actually sounded like an M80 going off in my face. As soon as I pulled that trigger, I had an odd sensation in the crossbow. The amount of vibration. Luckily I have glasses, so if anything hits, my glasses will deflect it. I won't lose an eye. That's what it'll sound like when your limbs break. And a lot of the crossbows now have these little wings on them. What happens to a few guys is they'll put their hand up here, and then they'll squeeze the trigger, and what'll happen is you end up like this. Here's my finger there. You wind up with no fingers because the string will actually rip your fingers off. I've run into some guys in the woods like that. So make sure that when I shoot, I usually use this sling. I wrap my hand around the sling and here, so I know my fingers are clear on that rail. Turn it sideways here. Okay, you can see where my hand is. Here's the rail. My fingers are nowhere near where that crossbow bolt is. There's a lot of kinetic energy in there, and it will remove your fingers. It'll leave you with a very bad injury for the rest of your life. So keep your fingers off the rail in your crossbow. Another question I get from other guys. That's aluminum. Let me get a carbon arrow. Okay, here's my quill arrow, an Excalibur arrow, 16.5 inches. Some people will keep reusing the same arrow over and over. I don't. I ran into an older hunter that's hunted most of his life. He was in his 70s, his buddy was 85. They were still hunting deer. I spent a lot of time with them two guys. I ran into them every year, and I've actually learned a ton of knowledge from those two. And basically what he asked me is, do you reshoot your arrows in your bow? And no, I don't. And the reason for it, because he actually had a carbon arrow in his crossbow, like this, and he pulled the trigger and it had a crack in it, and it actually shot fragments of carbon fiber all the way into his arm. He was in the hospital for a year. He almost died with blood poisoning from the carbon inside of it. So now, ever since those words of wisdom of that older hunter, I don't reshoot any of my arrows. I usually keep them. I hang them on the wall. And my broadheads, I don't reshoot my broadheads because you don't know what that broadhead hit inside the deer. Sometimes if you hit a bone, it'll crush the point. Sometimes the blades snap off, sometimes they bend. Your arrow could actually be a couple thousandths of an inch out of balance. So when you shoot, obviously the closer you shoot, the less you're going to notice. But if you take a long shot and your arrow is wobbling because it's out of balance, it could land anywhere on the deer. You could cripple the deer, and you're not going to harvest your deer. You're not going to have a clean harvest, or the deer might run away, or you just might miss. But the chances of you reshooting a used arrow chances of you getting an injury after you reuse an arrow, after you put this through an animal, the risk is small, but it can do a lot of damage to you. So now I don't reshoot any arrows either. I retire them after I use them, and then I just replace them. I would rather buy new arrows every year in broadheads and suffer a catastrophic injury, lose a finger, part of my arm, or one of my eyes. So there's my words of wisdom for a crossbow. If you're a new crossbow hunter, there's some knowledge I shared with you. And again, I've learned that from older hunters in the woods, which the two gentlemen I used to run into, they may not be alive anymore. The older hunters are fading away. We do have a lot of knowledge to share with the younger generation. Don't be afraid to ask if you have questions. Always talk to the older hunters. Okay, that's the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this. And now we're going to shoot the crossbows in. And I will have a thunderhead test. And we can see how accurate the thunderhead is compared to a field point. A lot of guys say my broadheads fly like field points. Well, no, they don't. You can shoot your field point and see where it groups, and then you should be able to screw your broadhead on, and it should land in the same pattern, and then your broadhead actually shoots like a field point. A lot of them do not. So just remember, when you go hunting, shoot your broadhead before you go hunting, and make sure your crossbow is sighted in for that broadhead. You all shoot a little bit different. And when it gets cold, you have to resight your broadhead in your bow in again, because the zero on your scope will actually move. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. Thank you for all the subscribers I have. My subscriber numbers are going up. I am a new YouTuber. You can tell my videos are getting a little better. It's been a big learning curve for me, and everybody that's given me comments, thank you. I've really enjoyed them. Sometimes it takes me a while to respond. It's been pretty busy lately, and things are starting to settle down now. I did send some responses to the people that gave me comments. I really appreciate that. And as always, please subscribe. Thank you for watching the PA Timber Ghost.